live, and hopefully this time there's audio. If anybody's here in the chat, if you can let me know if you're hearing anything, that would be helpful. I don't know. I can't tell from my end because I can hear myself, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. No. Great. Okay. WW. I got that. Thank you. All right. So I've got, I did a stream a couple days ago, and the audio just didn't work, so I sort of unpublished it afterward. But what I did in that stream is I unboxed this Mac Plus, which I'm going to bring out in a minute, and then this G3 tower. Let me see if I can get the camera on the tower. Yeah, I can't get the camera on the tower at this moment. Anyway, but I this G3 tower, I did some troubleshooting, got it to start up, and then recapped it just preemptively. There was really nothing that was not working. And in fact, when I took the caps off, I think this one and trying to remember that one, and that one, I think had a little bit of like cap juice under them, like dried up, but it wasn't visible until I actually took them off. So this board probably had the least leaking of any G3 logic board, this kind of board that I've ever recapped. So that was good. It's still worth doing. It didn't take that long. It's not that much trouble. And because the board was so clean, I didn't even have to run it through the ultrasonic cleaner. So basically, I'm going to start out with just putting this. Oh, hi, Matthew. I see you there. I'm going to just start by putting this back together here. So this is a revision B logic board, which means in theory, the IDE works better than it did in the first revision of the board, or the original one. But it remains to be seen whether it will actually support SSD storage, or if I'm going to have to use a hard drive in it, because in my experience, generally I have to use a hard drive. So the machine has came with 32 megs of RAM when it was new. What I found in it was this, which was labeled 32, but really is 256 megs. And then there were these two 64 meg modules. So I was having trouble getting the machine to turn on. It turned out, I think it had something to do with the RAM. So as soon as I took these out and put what I thought was the 32 in, then it started up just fine. So for right now, I'm just going to put the 32 back because I know it'll work. The 256 back because I know it'll work with that, and 256 is certainly enough for this machine. And then this is the ROM. That's going to go back. And then this is the voltage regulator, which I'm not exactly sure why, but all G3s need one of these, apparently. And then got our clock battery. This had a battery in it. I don't know if it was the original one, but it was definitely old. And when I checked it with the multimeter, it was actually showing negative 0.06 volts. So there was something, I don't think there was anything wrong with the meter because I checked with another one. So I think it was just so dead that it was actually like somehow siphoning power out of the meter, if that's even a thing, which I really don't know because I don't know that much about that area of electronics. So there's one thing I do want to do real quick before I put it back together. So this is the personality card, or the PERCH card, which there were, I thought until today that there were 3 versions of this. So there's the really basic one that is just audio in and out, like a speaker and microphone ports. And then there's this one, which has these old-fashioned, like a VCR or camcorder would have, the composite video, and then the left and right audio, and then S video, as well as these two that are on the Whisper card. So the Whisper has just those. This one's called Wings. But what I found out today is there is Wings 1 and Wings 2. So this was Wings 1, and on this one, it has these 2 connectors, which officially were never used, but it turns out you can potentially connect these to the or one of these, I don't know which one, to the TV tuner or TV FM tuner card that was available for a lot of the Performa models prior to the G3, and it might work. Apple never officially did that. It was never like a real thing, but I found out online it might work. And then it turns out there was also 2 versions of the Whisper card, the audio only one, and I guess from what I can determine, the newer version of it, the only difference is right about here. It has a header, captive connector like this, but with little clips, and that's where the display output connects for the all-in-one G3 that has the monitor built in. And then the third version of the third official version of the card is called Bordeaux, and that one actually has a DVD decoder chip on it, and it's got a bunch of I'm assuming they're RAM chips, some kind of buffer for the DVD. And I actually found one of those in a machine that was pretty much trashed, but by some miracle it had that in it. So I've never actually tried it for DVD video, but in theory it would probably work. So anyway, the one thing I want to do to this real quick before I put this back in the machine is it has just this one cap here. And so when I recap the logic board, I forgot about this one. So I'm just going to replace that. And so that was the unapproved twist off method of removing caps. And there are a lot of people on YouTube who will tell you don't ever do that. I have never had a pad come off of a board that wasn't already so leaked on that it was compromised, and it would have come off anyway. And I feel like it's less stress on the board than using a heat gun, and also less chance of the heat making some small component like that next to it come loose. So I can see here, let me put the microscope here, but I can see here that where I took that off, if I can find it, it should be right about there. So that's an example right there of the, sorry, it's very hard to point this. Okay. That's an example of what happens when it leaks. So that's the corrosive electrolytic juice that comes out of the caps. And so this is worse actually than any of the leaks on the logic board. So I'm glad I did this one. So I'm just going to get this. I'm just going to get this off. I'm not going to be able to do it under the microscope because it's in the way. But so let me just get some flux here real quick and get that new cap on there. And so the caps I used for the logic board and what I'll use for this are they're not tantalum, which is what most people use for recapping these days. They are organic polymer, which look like the style that came with it. I don't have that on, but switch back to the scope for a second. Oh, I am on the scope. What am I talking about? There we go. So it looks like these other, they're like aluminum cans basically. But it's a polymer inside, so it's not leaky, it's not runny. So then you don't have the problem that these original ones had. So I'm just going to put a little flux on here. I'm going to get the legs of the old cap off of here because that's basically what, when you do the twist off, it breaks the legs and they stay stuck to the board. And so this will clean the pads so they can then accept the new cap. So just, and I should be using my fume extractor, but since I'm only doing one here, I'm not going to bother with it. The smell actually isn't that offensive. It's just probably not good to breathe. Okay, there's one and the other one. So there. So that's the leg. Okay, that's looking good. And then let me find them. These little alcohol pads and just clean off the flux there. Okay. And then, I'm not actually sure why I did that because now I'm just about to put more flux back on it. the new cap. But I think once the flux is heated up, it doesn't really work, so that's why it needs fresh. Okay. Let me get the solder out here. And so this new cap, as I said, this is the polymer kind. This one is a little bit smaller than what I just pulled off. I intentionally ordered slightly smaller ones because in places where there's other components really close to something I'm attaching, it's a lot easier if to do if the cap is slightly smaller, so it doesn't get in the way so much of the other ones and accidentally risk touching those with the iron. Okay, so there are tiny components on this side of the cap, so I'm gonna do that one first so that I can get it a little bit farther onto the pads, I guess, from where those are. And then, okay, real quick. This is not perfectly straight. I don't know if it's gonna, should be okay. Okay, that's looking good to me. So that should be it for recapping here. And let's get this excess flux off. You don't see the flux now, but when the board dries a day or two later, it'll look like spilled some glue or something on there. It leaves kind of a nasty rest. Okay, so that should be it. Now this computer can go back together. As I said, I'm going to leave the extra RAM out. I'm sorry, I should have had this used so that you could actually see it's working on. I didn't realize. Okay, and then actually, the heat sink needs to go back on the processor. When I pulled this heat sink off, what I discovered is it has this little square of thermal something that's supposed to pull the heat off this right in the center of the G3 chip there, which is really the only thing it makes contact with. This is just dried up. It just feels like plastic. It's kind of useless. And I don't know. Actually, I should see if I can scrape it off. Maybe able to scrape it off. Otherwise, well, not easily. Okay. So otherwise, I'm just going to put some thermal compound here and hope for the best. Where's that? And this stuff, you don't want to use very much of it because the point of the whole thing is that the CPU or the heatsink is going to press down on it, and so if there's very much of it, it'll just squish out from under the heatsink. Okay, this is not spreading. It's as I hoped. I shouldn't be using something absorbent. Okay, I'm just going to put a little bit in the middle and hope for the best here. It's certainly going to be better than it was with this, probably 20-year-old, whatever that was on it, more than 20-year-old. Okay, so the heat sink goes on like this. There. It's getting both sides to latch at the same time here. There we go. Okay, and then these screws, I don't know which one of these I'm using. Okay, so let me switch over to the bench here where I've got the computer. And so this computer this is before Apple decided people shouldn't open their computers. Take that back. It's in between the time that they decided that originally, and then they decided it was okay during this era, and then they decided again, like with the latest Macs, that everything should just be glued shut. Zoom in on what I'm doing. So I am, I'm gonna, well, you can see what I'm doing now because I'm gonna install it into this case. So sorry about that before. Okay, so oops. Okay, so I got the CPU and the RAM and the ROM back on here. And if I can get it to get things out from under it, if I can get it to there we go. So there's basically these two little clips there and there that retain the board in place, and then there's a couple screws that are going to go in. And then these connectors, that one I think is CD audio. This one here is the power switch. This one here is the speaker. And this one is 5 pins, but only using 2 wires. And that's the LED, the power LED, which in this case is actually part of the power switch, or the power button. It's a translucent or almost transparent button, which I guess should have been a sign of what was to come from Apple with translucent stuff. Okay, oops, just trying to get a screwdriver here, and then so this screw here is both to retain the logic board in place and to ground the heat sink. And the only reason I can think why a heat sink would need to be grounded, I'm just guessing, is not because it needs it itself, but it's in case something else comes in contact with it, since it's made out of metal. But yeah, most heat sinks I've seen don't have that. Okay, so that's back firmly in place. And then we've got the connections here. So this is the floppy drive. These are the IDE for the hard drive and the CD drive. And then this is the power, but I was just going to test that real quick. It's that power tester. I put it somewhere where I could easily find it. So I probably won't find it. Oh, wait a minute. It's right here. Okay, so this is for testing an ATX power supply. And if I can remember which way it goes in, because there we go. Okay, it's made for newer ones that have more pins, but on the older ones, the pins that existed all along do the same thing. So it's kind of backward compatible. And so what we're going to see, so here's 12 volt, and that's reading 11.6. This one isn't connected. 4.9 on the 5 volt. 5.2 on this 5 volt, 11.6 on the 12 volt, 3.3 on the 3.3. So those voltages are really stable, especially given the age of the power supply. Now, this is something that normally you couldn't test that way on a Mac. This is one of the very, very few models that used, actually, no, I believe this is the only model that used an actual ATX power supply. Same thing that PCs of that era used. And in fact, the all-in-one version had a different power supply because it had to power the monitor as well, the CRT, which sucks a lot of power. And so there's a little jumper. There's no way to see it on the camera, but there's a jumper down right there that actually switches between the Mac proprietary power supply and ATX. And the only difference with this one is, I think, one pin that is for the power key on the keyboard, the soft power, because obviously a normal PC ATX power supply doesn't have that. It's not a thing. Okay, so that's in, and then this recapped personality card. You know, I forgot to put the little sticker that says I recapped it. So I put a sticker like that just so I know that I've recapped it. One thing about this machine is it has the ATI Rage 2 which is the older of the two GPUs that this machine could have. Honestly, it doesn't make a huge difference. I realized I used the wrong screws for this, so I'm just going to switch them. These ones are made for the cards in the back. And so there was also a Rage Pro version of it. It didn't really make a performance difference as far as I know. And the funny thing is, on the Rage chip here, and I'm sure you can't see it from the camera, but it says Rage 2 Plus DVD, which sort of implies that maybe it has a DVD decoder on it, which I can assure you it does not. And I don't know why it says that, but they all say that. But as I mentioned, the DVD decoder is on that Bordeaux version of the personality card, PERCH card. Okay. And so then the other thing about the video, this is where you would put the SG RAM, which is video RAM. As far as I know, it's sort of it's like the EDO version of video RAM. So EDO was kind of at the very end of the DRAM era before SDRAM. And it was just a higher performance. Almost no machines that Apple made ever actually took advantage of the benefits of EDO versus just standard FPM, which was the traditional kind of RAM. Okay, and then this card here, which is pretty cool. This has FireWire and USB, and this OrangeLink. These go for quite a bit on eBay these days, I believe, if you can find them. There just weren't that many of them, but basically it adds FireWire and USB to the machine. Oh, that was another thing. I guess on the version 2, revision 2 of the Wings card, there's also somewhere that a USB header could be soldered, I guess only inside the case. So I think it was just for testing. I don't know if it ever worked, but that was something I read today. Okay, so everything's plugged in. Everything's there that should be. So we're going to close this up. And I just need to put a hard drive. Where's that hard drive? I tried to put everything right where I would need it. Oh, here it is. So I'm going to just connect this hard drive. And this one is it's 120 gigabyte, and I think it has, I don't even have an 8 megabyte cache. So it's a high performance drive. The one that came in here was a 6 gigabyte. So this is a 20x upgrade here from that one. And so this is not it's not as fast as an SSD, but it's not just bigger, it's definitely much faster than what came in the machine. I'm missing temporarily the plate that the drive mounts to properly install it inside the computer. So for the moment, that's not going to be there. Let me just close up the case and connect the cables. So I have here on the test bench, I have this sort of harness of cables that works with basically any machine, whatever video output, whatever USB or whatever it needs. I do have an adapter even to use the USB keyboard with an ADB machine like this one. But as it turns out, what am I doing here? As it turns out, the regular keyboard doesn't have the power key, so you can't turn the machine on with it. So speaking of that, let me grab this here. Sorry, you're not really seeing this. I don't have a camera on the spot when I'm working. Okay, so there's the keyboard to plug in the power. Okay, hopefully it doesn't explode. I have not tested it since I recapped the board. I've never had one explode. Okay, and then let me turn on my virtual monitor here so that you can see what comes on the screen. This. Okay, and here it goes. Power light came on, that's a good sign. And let me make sure that actually, yeah, the screen is connected. So I can't tell if I'm hearing the hard drive or not. Okay, let me turn this off for a second. Let me disconnect the speaker. Now I'll be able to hear a chime if there is one. Yeah, so there was a chime there, so I don't know why there's nothing on the screen yet, but let's give it a second. This is just a like a photo of a monitor. It's not a real monitor, so the green light on there doesn't actually mean anything. And so there's an out-of-band chat here. Let's see. The question in this chat was, is this an OrangeLink card from RePC? No, it's not. It came in this computer. Okay. Okay, so I don't know why there's no video coming out of this thing. Let me try switching to a different resolution here and see if I get in. Okay, so this is strange. That there's no video. Let me try. So this was what happened before, actually. I try to reset the PRAM here. This was what happened the first time when I tried to use this machine. What is going? Yeah, it doesn't seem to be resetting the PRAM. Okay, so this was what happened the first time, and ultimately the solution was to rearrange the RAM inside the machine. And so I don't know if, oh, I forgot that hard drive wasn't actually anchored. But I think I put the RAM in here this time the way that what worked the last time. So I was expecting it to work this time. And indeed I did. It's that same RAM, same spot. So I wonder if it's an issue with the slot. Okay. I'm just going to plug this in without actually closing it, just for testing. Let's see what we get. So it's weird. Normally, if you get a chime, there we go. Okay, I've got a picture on the screen here, but I'm not seeing it on the capture. Okay, that's weird. Second here, let me. Okay, let me power cycle the capture device here then. So I've got something on my benchmark. There we go. Okay. Now we got something. So I guess it was just it was the capture card. It wasn't the computer. Although it may have been a combination of that and the RAM. So the good news is this is starting up. And so basically this one's done. We can move on. Plus, I just want to see that it starts all the way up and just check system profiler and make sure it detects all the devices in there. The one thing it won't show is the Ethernet, because this this install of Mac OS I did on a PowerMac 6500, which is a different kind of machine that does not have onboard Ethernet. So I installed the Ethernet driver for the PCI Ethernet card that was in that machine, which is obviously a different extension than what this one needs. Okay, this is weird that it's not moving, but the mouse still moves. So any second here, I expect it to move. And the reason I discovered the Ethernet didn't work, why I even cared, is because it told me the clock wasn't set, and of course, it should set through NTP off the internet if it had been connected. That's one protocol that even on these old machines will still work with modern servers. Okay, so I'm not getting any progress here. I'm going to try it again here with extensions off, just to get to the desktop. And this may be an issue with the contents of this hard drive versus the machine itself. Okay, now that's funny. It's still not outputting video again. I'm seeing it on my screen, but not here. Well, that was a glitch. Okay. Let's try that. Okay, so this is weird because I do have a picture on the screen, on the physical screen. However, I hope I didn't damage the hard drive when I opened this machine and it went sort of flying around inside. Okay, it's currently stuck on Happy Mac, so I'm going to troubleshoot this part later because obviously the recapping was successful, and the thing turns on, makes noise, shows a picture. Again, that was the lack of a picture on the stream here, was to do with the video capture device I have for this computer, which is a pretty cheap device, although not so cheap that I can forgive it for just not working. The hard drive's not rattling. The hard drive doesn't rattle when I shake it, so I don't think it got damaged. And the fact that it got as far as the Mac OS screen suggests it probably is fine. Okay, so moving on to the Plus here in just a second. Let me just put this together and get it off the table. Just gonna put this over here. Out of the way. Okay, so we've got a much older machine. Now, we're not going to get to see anything on the screen of this one because, as is the case with basically any Plus that hasn't been recapped, this machine is, it has some RIFA caps in there, which are notorious for invariably failing. It's not if, it's not even when, it's like, I mean, it's kind of when, but it's whether it's going to happen within 2 seconds of turning it on or 10 minutes of turning it on. But at this point, these machines will not work with the without replacing those caps. So this one, let's get this opened up. And this machine is, by the way, in amazing shape. I've got the mouse and keyboard, although at this moment those are not relevant since I can't turn it on. So the goal here is going to be to sort of inspect the inside of the computer. Let me see if I can get this camera tilted a little bit. So that, there we go. Okay. No, it's still on. Okay, that's as good as it's going to get. So this one, I lost my train of thought there. Anyway, let's get this open and see what's going on inside. So I've got my I've got this big long hex bit to reach down inside the handles here. This was sort of an Apple strategy to make people not even try to service their own machine. They may deny that's why they put the screws down there, but it certainly wasn't for convenience of technicians working on the machines, because it's the opposite of that. Why is this not? shouldn't have to turn it this many times. This doesn't seem right. What is going on? Let me try a different screwdriver handle here. It's the wrong way. It shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this hard. Feels like it's kind of loose. Oh, sorry. Staying under the camera very well there. Okay, something's not right here because this is not this hard. Okay, and the bit seems to be stuck. The bit is totally stuck. What is going on here? Let's see. What the heck is going on? You know what? I have a theory. I have a theory that somebody opened this up before. Yeah, that's what happened. Somebody opened this machine before and didn't put the screws back. So what I was doing was grinding into the plastic holes, which probably now won't take a screw. Fortunately, this one has this extra screw inside the clock battery compartment. And so it will stay shut well enough without those screws. Plus, they are proprietary, like custom-made screws, which doesn't work. Oh, I see, Matthew. I got that. I see the chat now. Thank you. Yeah, I figured it out. It just took me a little bit too long. Okay. So anyway, by the way, anybody who's watching, if you haven't clicked like and subscribe, I would appreciate it if you do that. Okay. So now, normally, these are extremely hard to open. Oh, that one actually opened better than they usually do. So here's the famous engraved, well, you can kind of see them engraved signatures there with the Mac team that were part of the mold. Don't be sorry, it's okay. I actually noticed the other day when I was looking in there that there didn't appear to be screws in the holes. I just couldn't tell because it's so deep in there. But Matthew, actually, one thing you might be able to tell me is how long has it been since you attempted to power this on when the RIFAs presumably blew out? Because I need to know how worried I should be about. No, they don't actually look blown to me. I mean, they look like they're going to, but I'm curious how likely it is any of these capacitors have lethal voltages in them still. But in the meantime, let me just see here. Oh, the other thing I wanted to do with the G3, I forgot. I don't need to do it right now. I mean, I might do it here before the end of the stream, depending how long this takes. But I wanted to take apart the floppy drive and clean it. It's interesting. Powered on about a month ago. Okay. So there could still be voltage, and I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter how long it's been. So let me do a little makeshift discharge device here. I don't know why this works to discharge a CRT, but this is what you're supposed to do. So it's what I do. Little anode cap. Oh, anode cap is made out of a soft plastic that is no longer as soft as it once was. Okay, so I'm just going to stick that in there and make contact with the metal. and I'm gonna intentionally touch it, but I think that should have done it. And so I don't understand why this discharges it, because it would seem to be transferring the power just to the other part of the metal, but it's what they say to do for safety. So, and sorry, I don't know if you could. I think you could see that when I was doing it. Okay, I have a better screwdriver for discharging, but I haven't been able to find it for several days. So, okay, and then there are on here on the analog board here, there are some really large capacitors like that, which could have also dangerous voltages in them. And I actually have a tool for discharging them, which I lost. So I ordered a new one that was supposed to be here today, and conveniently Amazon has delayed it until next week. So I'm going to hope for the best, and hopefully we don't have any electrocutions here. So what I can see inside of here is, I don't know if it shows up on my camera or not. Let's see. Let me bring it over and use the scope. So what I see inside of here is evidence that something at some point leaked. That's literally as much as I can say for sure. But I'll show you the evidence here. So if I look down there, so that's on the plate at the bottom, or the sort of skeleton of the machine. The chassis is Bruce Rains from another YouTube channel says, and actually I think he's streaming right now, so I shouldn't mention him. So anyway, and that's right below where the RIFA caps are. And I can't tell if these actually, oh yeah, it says RIFA on it. So there are, there are three that I can see. Yeah, there are three of them. So it's these thin sort of vertical, where are we here? There we go. If I can turn this, let me turn it so that it's facing the same way my hand is. There we go. Okay, so right there, that is what a RIFA cap looks like. Let me see if I can make it less bright or reflective here. So that is a RIFA cap, and then so is this bigger one. And let's see if we can see it. So you can, let's turn the light back on. It's right there, RIFA, right there. There's RIFA. And so you can see how the sort of plastic is shattered. It's almost like if you took like a hard candy. I'm trying to think, like a handmade kind of hard candy, and sort of whacked it on something, and it would kind of shatter like that. And then, basically once it comes open, a lot of smoke comes out, and it's when they fail spectacularly, and they do always fail. Okay, so you said it should have a pretty nice flyback. I'm glad to hear it, because I do have a G3 all-in-one as well, and the reason I haven't turned that one on in a few years is that I believe its flyback has either failed or is going to the instant I turn it on. And then I also have a nice 17-inch Trinitron Apple monitor that has the flyback has blown out on that one. And again, much like the RIFAs, when the flyback fails, it's a pretty catastrophic failure. Okay, so the logic board I have. Oops. Switch the view. You can see this. So the logic board, I disconnected the cables, and I'm going to pull that out. Is there anything else I need to disconnect? I don't think so. Okay, so as I suspected, I think On the label on the back of this machine, it did say 1 megabyte. I'm assuming that these are each 1 megabyte, but they could all be 256K. But my guess is that this is 4 1 megabyte modules. If not, I will certainly install 4 1 megabyte modules because that's what it needs. Somewhere on here there is a, oh no, I'm thinking of the SE, has a clearly labeled jumper resistor or something. Oh no, right here, RAM size. Okay. Okay, so here, let me get the scope again. Okay, so RAM size right there. So that is where you would set by basically jumping between the two solder pads here. That's where you would indicate whether it's 256K or 1 meg. So 256K is not connected anymore. It would have been from the factory, and you can see from the condition of those pads and the residue from some flux there that those used to be jumpered, and now they're not. So by taking that off, it tells the computer that they are 1 meg, because the only thing it supports in these slots is either 256K or 1 meg. And of course, the original Mac had 128K, which was utterly useless. And then they came out with the 512K version, which you would think, 4 times multiple there would help, but it still was close to useless. So this here is then 8 times that, or would it be 32 times the original? And so, I get that right? 8, 60, yeah, 32 times. And so that's why this machine can run, System 6, System 7. Okay, you're saying you're pretty sure it's 1 megabyte RAM. You're saying each of the modules is 1 megabyte, not in total, right? Because this having that 256 thing removed would suggest these are 1 megabyte. Okay, so anyway, the logic board looks good, and the thing about these logic boards is it is total. Okay, that's what I thought. So the thing about these logic boards is it's all through-hole soldering. It's the traditional, you can kind of see all the little solder things here to slice your fingers open. And so this was a much more expensive manufacturing procedure, and because it couldn't be automated the way that surface mount assembly is. And so this machine, basically the Plus and the SE are virtually identical. In terms of specs, I can't think of anything that's different between them other than the SE uses an internal battery instead of the one in the back. But I think in every other way they're the same. The SE did have a version with a high density floppy drive, but the original one wasn't. So anyway, they have the same CPU, which is that's the 68,000 CPU. And they both had this 4 megabyte limit. And in fact, the Mac Classic also had that limit. But the this one and the SE were through-hole assembly. And then the Classic, there were 3 machines they launched on the same day: the Classic, the LC, and the 2SI. And those were the first models in terms of chronological, not necessarily if you were sort of listing the models, because the SE30 also was surface mount, I believe. But anyway, those 3 models, Apple was very proud of the fact that they had changed the manufacturing procedure and reduced the cost, although I don't know that they reduced the price of the machines relatively to match that. I do see one of the RAM modules here, the little clip on this side is broken off. That is unfortunately very common because they use this stupid plastic, and I guess it didn't occur to anyone that when the plastic heats up and cools down and gets old, it becomes breakable. But basically it shatters. So I'm not even going to try to take these out. But my point about the through hole is there's no reason to recap this because there's nothing that needs to be recapped. And in fact, there aren't even that many caps on the board. I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. This is C14, so there must be more. Okay, these are another kind of caps up here. This is why I have the scope, right? These are another kind of caps here. I'm not sure what exactly they are, but that's labeled with a C1 means it's a cap. So there's those. Here's C47 way over here. I can assure you there are not 47 caps on this board. So it may just be that they're not reusing numbers. Here's even C48, which isn't even populated. So anyway, but the point, yeah, so there are a bunch of these little kind of caps, but the important thing is they don't leak, as far as I know. I've never seen them leak, and the common wisdom is that a plus does not need to be recapped. So, okay, so putting this aside, let's take a look at the analog board now, because that is the one that does need some service. And I'm not going to have all the caps in inventory that it needs, simply because it has these giant ones, which, if those need to be replaced, which they may or may not, I think they do. I don't have any of that giant kind here. So, okay, getting this cover off, these little plastic retainer things, would seem like it would be easy, but again, these were not designed serviceability in mind. Actually, there's a thing in the middle of it that, if you push it out from this side, it actually makes it pop out. And then it's two pieces that fit together like that. So I just have to push them. However, I don't know if I'm going to be able to reach all of them to do that. So that's two. I think there's at least two more. Yeah, one here, one right there. This one, I'm not going to be able to reach all the way in there to get it. So that one's going to be an interesting process to get it out. I know that I've gotten these paper shields off before, so I know it is possible, even for me. But let's see, I probably have extras of these, so even if I break it, it shouldn't matter. But actually, that came out. Okay, so that's all of them. Here we go. So now, in theory, if there's power inside any of the caps that are on here and I touch the wrong place, I could get a very nasty shock with some very, very high voltage. So I'm not planning to do that. I'm looking to see. So even these big caps say 16. No, it says 16 volts. This one says 46 volts. That doesn't sound right. And so, but also the capacitance, the voltage isn't really that meaningful because the capacitance is high. And so, that's the amount of power that can be in there. Okay, so we're going to disconnect carefully. I'm aiming to do this carefully. So I'm going to disconnect the power connector. It goes to the logic board. And I'm going to be very careful not to break the CRT neck in the process. Let me switch to the other table because there's the camera there is higher, so it should have better. There we go. Now you can kind of see the whole thing at once. Let's see. There we go. Okay. And so then here is the CRT connector. Okay, that one doesn't want to come out as easily. Okay. And this one here, well, that's the anode. So that one will stay attached. I'm hoping that I got this discharged successfully. Just out of fear or whatever, I'm just going to try one more time to discharge it, just to be extra cautious. The chances of there being a dangerous amount of power that's waiting there to shock me, pretty slim, because I think even as early as the Plus, they had a bleeder resistor, which if it worked within seconds or at most minutes of turning the machine off, the power would be totally bled off and discharged. Okay, so that one's good. And then let me get this ground. Well, actually, no, if I can get that unplugged, it won't matter. I just don't want to break the CRT neck. That's the key here. Okay, so this again, sorry. Damn. I need to rethink how I've got these cameras set up. Okay, so this anode cap stays attached to the analog board. So back in the day, if you ordered like a service replacement part for the analog board, it would come with this already attached to it. It does not come off. Okay, so this one, I'm just really worried about breaking the CRT neck. Thinking if I kind of pry the thing that retains it here, which might not be as easy as it sounds. Shoot. Okay, let's see. Try this one more time. There we go. Okay. And so now this stays attached to the tube here. And so at this point, this ground was already unscrewed when I opened it. So at this point now, it's a matter of getting the screws out of here, and then I should be able to pull the board out. So let me find Phillips. This is going to need a small Phillips bit. Grab one of those. Okay, Phillips. Small Phillips, where are we here? Those are not normal Phillips. Okay. Let's see if this is the right size. May not be, but it's close enough. Okay, so that's those two, and then it looks like there's two here, and should be it to free the analog board, which I'm assuming has never been out of the machine before. Matthew, you might know if it has. I'm guessing it probably hasn't. Okay. For anyone watching this who hasn't figured it out, Matthew is the person I got this machine from the other day. Okay. Oh, still one connector left. This one has a squeezed release. Okay. So now, theoretically, if there is any, it was never out. Okay. If there was any problematic power left in here to electrocute me, it would be now in the part that I'm moving here. So I'm going to switch back to this camera and take a look at it. Okay. So, first of all, the good news is all the electrolytic caps, which are all these round ones, or at least that type of caps, are intact. So the reason why they're scored on the top, let's see if I can go to the scope here. The reason why they always score them on top is so that if, let's focus like that. Sometimes it's like a T. I think that one's sort of a T shape, like it's a logo. That one's the one. Where are we? That one's like a T. The reason they're scored like that is so that if the this thing is really dirty when you see it up close. If the cap starts to like swell up, it can vent. So basically, the pressure, these little score marks, it'll just kind of open up from there, and so you can. look on Wikipedia if you want to read about the cap plague of the 90s or early 2000s. But there was an era where somebody from one of the companies that made capacitors, as the story goes, saw on a whiteboard in one of their competitors' facilities their chemical formula for whatever was inside the cap. So they wrote it down, but they wrote it down wrong. And then because like all these companies make stuff for all the other companies, basically almost every brand of caps for the better part of a decade had a basically 100% failure rate. And so I have like an E-Machines tower computer that's got almost every cap is vented. And so they go like this, and there's this crusty stuff that comes out of them. And then obviously they don't work. So if you try to turn on a machine that's full of those, you can almost guarantee it won't work. Okay, so good news here is that those have not vented. Now, the RIFAs here, so that's C38, 37, and 33. It's that one, and that one. Those are the RIFAs. And they don't look like they've smoked out. They just look like they have cracked, which they all do. But in particular, if you look at I think it's this one. Let's see if I can get the right angle to see it. You can totally see the cracks on the top. Trying to get it to focus. I don't know why I can't. Wait, I'm looking at it. That's why. So, let's see if I can focus it now. Oops. Yes, that is focused. Okay. So those cracks, like you can see between the 22 and the 00, there's a crack all the way across. That's all it takes for these to fail. And it happens because it's this brittle plastic that just is going to do that. And especially because, when the machine's in use, it is constantly heating up and cooling off and heating up and cooling off. And I imagine that hastens the process, but I think it would happen anyway. So I'm just looking to see if there's anything else that is visibly a problem. I don't believe there are any other RIFAs. One thing about these RIFAs is you will only find them on an analog board or a power supply, and they're always going to be located near the AC connector because it has something to do with the AC power coming in. As far as I know, they're never used on the DC part of the board, which everything over here, I think pretty much is. I think this little cluster here is related to AC, and the rest of it is DC. But again, the electrical engineering kind of stuff is not my area of expertise. So what I want to do, I need to catalog the caps that need to come out of here. So what I'm going to do first is, and I don't know if I can set this up to screen share, but I'm going to pull up this. I'm going to pull up this reference here. Plus analog. Yeah. So Steve from Mac84, who you can also find on YouTube, has made he's made a reference for these boards. But before I just ordered the caps from his reference, I want to make sure they're correct because, again, these were not meant to be user serviceable, especially not the high power analog board. And so when Apple did little iterative changes over the lifespan of the machines that use this kind of board, they didn't necessarily document it, and they could have changed things. And I know for a fact there are different versions. Plus, there's also this is because these use AC. You can see right here on a big bright neon sticker, it says 120 volt. There's a 240 version of the board as well for basically everywhere other than North America and Japan and I guess a couple other places. So what I was trying to do here, I was going to put a link to this. Let me just. Sorry, I'm not signed into chat apparently myself. Here we go. So in case anybody watching this ever cares, I just posted a link to the reference guide for from Mac84, and that's what I am going to look at here. So let me see if his picture matches this board. I'm just looking for any obvious differences. So I'm seeing different color wires wrapped around here. That doesn't matter. I'm seeing this one is not a RIFA in his photo. And that one is not even populated in his photo. Or maybe it is, and it's a different kind. Yeah, actually, okay, so yes, this is different because now I'm looking at this and there are not RIFAs in his picture. Let me see if I can add this to the screen. And credit where it's due here to Steve, Mac 84, because I'm not trying to steal anything. Let me go to image, add source. I guess I have to download to add it. So save desktop, save source, desktop. There we go, and done. Okay, so here is, stretch it out here. Here is here's the reference image that he has provided on the website here, and it's full screen for me. Okay, so looking at this, and then let me move this over so they're side by side. So looking at this comparison here, and of course this is covering up, unfortunately, the area in question. The list here is covering it up. So down by the power connector, though, you can see there is where this one is. That is clearly not a RIFA on his. And then where this RIFA is, this tiny one here in the shadow, that you can, let me see if I can put some light on it. So I'll use the scope that has a light. So that one appears to not even be populated on his, although it could be honestly what's there looks like a diode or something else. But but there's not one. And then up here, that one, from what I can see through the almost opaque list here, it looks like it's just that outline. So I'm thinking what he did is he just removed those, and that the machine will work without it. And I think there is a good chance that's the case. However, because there is one on 38, the bigger one here, that one, that's this brown kind, it would seem that is required or should be there. So I'm not going to try to turn it on, just removing these. And that one actually doesn't look as cracked as the others, but I know it is. And if I try to turn it on, it will go up in smoke. Okay, so just looking at whether there are any other differences here, I'm not really seeing it. So where he's got the list, I saw that, Matthew, thanks. Where he's got the list of these, saying C1 requires a special replacement. So where is C1? I'm guessing that's one of these big ones at the top, which also, okay, so I see he's put C1 and C2 at the top, where these two are. So that requires a special replacement, and I'm assuming if I order a cap kit, it's going to be there, but I probably will just go to DigiKey and order these. I read a horror story from somebody this last week about an order with Mouser, so I'm more resolved than ever to stay loyal to DigiKey for components. Okay, but there's one more detail here, and that is that, hang on one second. And that is, analog replacement parts. Here we go. So I believe, is this, can't tell whose document this is, and I want to give credit. So here, Tinker Different is where I found the original list. Okay. So yeah, it was JDW that posted this also on YouTube. He made a list of I'm looking at another picture here that looks even more different than either of these. But he made a list of the caps that should be changed on both the analog and the logic board. And in this case, let's see, physical size, blah blah blah. If you need 240 version, okay. Let's see, 33 microfarads, a bit cheaper. Oh, I see. Okay. Recommended radio. Okay. Okay. So what I'm seeing here is that he's not replacing all of them. Now he's saying replace C1 with film type, and as far as I know, C1 is up at the top, and these are pre-recap photos, so he didn't post the post-recap photo. Film type, my understanding is that a film type capacitor is a RIFA, and I can't imagine switching from what appears to be an electrolytic and replacing it with a RIFA. I don't know why you would do that. So maybe my understanding of what that means is not quite right. So he's saying, okay, you normally only need to replace the electrolytic capacitors since only they leak / dry out over time. Okay, so he's got a list of the ones in bold here are absolutely need replacing. And then, yeah, okay, so I'm going to post a link to this as well, just again, in case somebody watches this in the future and needs the reference. I just added that. It's a Google spreadsheet. Okay, so the point here is that C1, C3 are in bold. And so I believe that's C1. This is C2. So where is C3? C3 is over here. So these two, am I still showing? Okay, so these two right here are absolutely must be replaced, he's saying. C2, it looks like might be optional. C2 is the kind that is yeah, it's 4,700 microfarads. So it has its capacitance is huge, and that one that could be an issue to even find. They're probably available, so I'm still going to look for these. You know, I'm going to do it. I probably might as well do all of them. So anyway, but those ones he's got down here as a must replace, and then the so on Steve's list here, it's saying C1 needs a special replacement. I believe what that special means is that it's high frequency, but this says non-polarized high frequency, and I was not aware that a cap could be non-polarized. I've always understood that caps are, and of course Apple didn't label a plus on the boards here. I guess they put a dot. No, that maybe isn't what the dot means either. So I'm not sure. And the wait a minute. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so oh no, that's a different one. Yeah, so these don't have so a lot of times the capacitors, since they are polarized, one of the pads will be square, like this one here is it's kind of a square, and that tells you the polarization. But what I'm seeing here is, oh, okay. Oh, okay. Maybe, no, that's not what it means. So normally there's a, like on this cap where there's this stripe on one side, that tells you the polarity. Yeah, it is. And so on this one, the stripe is on that side. This one does not have a stripe. It has something kind of like a stripe here, but it's not white. And they always are. So like on every other one, or just about, you can see it's white, there it's white, there it's white, where it kind of wraps around to the top. So that stripe is there, and this one really doesn't have it. So it is non-polarized, and I didn't know there was such a thing. And so I'm assuming it does have to be non-polarized. So that's going to be a harder one to find, I think. But I've got a list of things that might work, and JDW is his initials. I can never remember. JDW, I think. He is JDW. He is in Japan, so his reference would be based on the 120 volt version as well, because they use the same kind of plugs we do, except most of them aren't grounded for some reason. So anyway, it's saying replace with film type, so I guess that means something. And so that C1 up here, this is a 250 volt cap. And this is why when they say the voltage can be dangerous on here, is not really a joke. It's 3.9 microfarads capacitance, but it's 250 volts. And then number 9 is 160, and then 35 and 36 are 200, and 38 is 275. So there are very high voltages on here to deal with. And so 38, yeah, 38. Okay, so 38 is the RIFA. So this is the one. This is 275 volt that it can handle. And so I wonder why it's 275, because what's coming in here is 120. I guess it's, I'm guessing it's, because the fuse is rated for 250 volts. So this is the 120 board, but it appears that this is probably something to do with self-preservation if somehow it had, 220, 240, whatever coming into it. I'm assuming. I don't know. Okay, so let me just verify the caps are in the same place, and then I will order these after the stream here. I'm not going to order this one here and here. And then, okay, so these ones are axials, and those 3. Okay, yeah. Okay, so it looks like it is the same. It's just that on Steve's reference here, he hasn't labeled 33, 37, and 38, which are, they're not in the list. Those are the ones that are RIFAs. So I wonder, he maybe is basing this on no, it's not a newer board. Doesn't look like. Let's have a revision, 6300102. Yeah, it's the same number. So I'm not sure. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and order those, and then on a future stream, I will recap them. In the meantime, I want to try out a new toy here, which is a desoldering gun. And I want to see if I can get these, get any of these caps off with the desoldering gun, because what this should do is heat the thing up just like a regular soldering iron, and then it has a vacuum that just suctions the solder right out. I don't know, the tip here doesn't look like there's a place for it to suck the solder in, but supposedly it does. So I guess I'm going to see how it works. So my understanding is let it heat up for about 1 minute, and then apply solder onto the tip, and then heat up the old solder over here, and then try to suction it off. So we're gonna see how that works. And one other key thing here is, besides the reason for fully recapping this, besides the RIFAs, it's not just the evil RIFAs. It's also that potentially you're going to want to go through here with the soldering iron and basically melt, reflow all of the solder on the board because it gets dried out. Now this, I mean, it doesn't look dried out, but that doesn't mean anything. I had another plus where the board looked okay, but it turned out that the solder joints, a lot of them were dried out, and so they were not making good contact. And so what would happen is the computer would power on, it would chime. Sometimes the screen would come on. Once it warmed up, the screen would go off. But if I turn the computer on its side, the screen would come back on, and it's because basically the components on this board were making bad connection. But this board stands vertically inside the machine, so when it went like this, gravity pulled everything back into place, and that's the only reason it worked. And so my friend Daniel, who has since moved to Japan, helped me out by reflowing it. He, I guess, kind of had a good idea of which places to do it. I think he'd done it before. So this is going to be my first attempt with this, and to be honest, most of my recapping, virtually all of it, has been on, and I've done a lot of it, but it's been on through-hole board, or on surface mount boards. So this is not my area of greatest expertise. I'm just looking for where the power. There we go. Okay. So we'll see how I do. But anyway, let me get this. I'm just looking at how this. Okay, rests like that. Okay, plug that in. This thing actually doesn't. I don't think it uses a whole lot of power. So I want to make sure I'm doing this right. So it says here, operation, plug it in, turn the power switch on, which I did. Is there anything to indicate that it's on? I guess it will be indicated by the fact that it's going to get warm. Not feeling it yet, but let's see. Okay, the vacuum pump works, so it's clearly got power. Okay, and then wait about 1 minute until the nozzle will melt the solder, then apply generous coating of solder onto the end of the nozzle. When it reaches the set temperature, the LED will flash. Where is the LED? I suppose it is on the handle, and so it's right here. There we go. Okay, so it's red. Okay, it's flashing, so that means it's warmed up. Yep, I can feel the heat coming off of it. Okay, apply a generous amount of solder, it said, onto the nozzle. Okay, place the nozzle on the head of the part to be desoldered to heat. Be careful to heat the head, not the landing on the board. That's the important part. Check to make sure it's melted. Slowly move the lead wire, make sure it moves. Okay, and then pull the trigger to remove the melted solder. All right. There goes nothing. So I'm going to try to get the this bigger RIFA off of here. Okay. So it is, mark which one I'm doing here. Okay. It's that one and that one. All right. Let's see how it works. Where's my solder? There. Okay. So I am assuming this does. I can't. Okay, now I see it accumulating. Let me get my fume extractor here. I don't know how well it will work. Hopefully this won't be too loud through my microphone. Okay. So it is this one. And oops. That seemed to get rid of the solder. Oh, that is brilliant. Okay. Yeah, I think it did it all at once. Okay, now I can see. So there was solder on the tip. Now I can see. I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but there is a hole in the end of it there. Okay, so if I did that right, this should, probably supposed to wiggle it like it said, but let's see. Let's see if this is loose. Okay, that one's loose. That one's loose. Yep. Okay. So this should more or less come off. It's moving around. Try a different tool here. Tweezers. I always lose things while I'm in the middle of it. Okay, here we go. So just see if I can get this off of here. Of course, the plastic is going to break even more as I'm squeezing this with tweezers. Yeah, it's just shattering. It's just totally shattering. Okay, yeah. So that's the problem with RIFAs, right? That's kind of proving the point. Okay, I see there's it's because the lead here is bent slightly. Okay, I think it'll come off now. Let's see. Sorry, this is out of the view of the camera. And there we go. All right. So that's that RIFA. I mean, this is what happens to it. The plastic just focus. The plastic just comes off, and as soon as it does, I think it's sort of like a vacuum effect, and then that's where you have a problem. Okay, so there's two more RIFAs. Let me just mark these. But this desoldering gun is a huge time saver. Okay, so it's that one and that one, and then it's these two. They get smaller and smaller each one. Okay. I probably should be trying to pull it through as I'm doing this, but it just kind of is what it is because I only have so many hands. This is perhaps why I prefer surface-mounted stuff, because it's yeah, that's amazing. The surface-mounted ones are don't require like holding things on both sides at the same time. Wow, this saves so much time. Okay. And make sure I'm removing the correct thing. Seems like a good precaution here. Wow, that is just amazing. Okay. So let's see now. These ones come off more easily than the first one. So it seems like, okay, I think it's just because the pins are bent and because these things are so, they crack so easily that it's kind of hard to grip them with the pliers here. But it's also conceivable that I did not, in fact, get every last bit of solder off of here. No, it looks like it's just the bent wires, because as soon as I straighten those out, these just come off. Well, that one did anyway. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. This is my new favorite tool. Okay, so the RIFAs are gone. That is a huge improvement, and makes me feel better about the whole thing already. And then the remainder of the caps that need to be replaced are going to come off. So where's my list again here? Okay. So the ones that absolutely must be replaced are C1, which is the non-polarized. This one, assuming. No. Oh. Oh, it's that one. Oh, this is something else. I don't want to remove that. Okay. So those two, and then C2, let's see. C2 is the one that might need to be replaced, depending if I can find it. C3 needs to be, so that would be this one over here. And then, I hate to make permanent marks on this board, but it's going to have a little paper cover over it, and I feel like it's better to do this than to take the wrong components off the board. 24 and 25. And 25, where's 24? It's 22. 20. I don't know if I'm. Okay, let me just get that list out of the way here. Okay, so 20. Actually, no, that list tells me where they are. 24 is over there. Okay, supposedly. 20. Let's see. Oh, this is 24. There's glue over where it says 24. It's under that glue right there. How convenient. Okay. So let me look this one. Let's see. I'm going to be very sure that I'm getting the right thing. These ones. Okay, and then 25 is going to be these ones. So I've been touching a bunch of places here that are attached to caps, and I haven't gotten shocked yet. So that's a good sign. Should probably be careful when I get to the really high voltage. Although I think the RIFAs were the really high voltage. So let's see. Yeah, mainly it was the RIFAs. Okay, and I don't think they're holding any power because they don't even work. But this one up here, number 1, that is 100 volts. So I should be careful with that one. Okay, 24, 25, 26. 26 is right next to 25. 26, I'm just trying to make sure here. 25, 26, okay. That's 26. This board is kind of, I don't know if you can see it in the picture, but it's kind of translucent. There, you can kind of tell. So I can sort of see where I'm pointing from the back as I'm marking these. Okay, so 24, 25, 26, 29, 30, 31. So 29 is going to be here, 30, 31. So it's these 3 here. Those 2. And these 2. And 31 here. These 2. Sorry, I'm just not aiming the camera right here for these. Okay, and then 31, 35, and 36, which is these 2 here. 5 and 36. Okay. So those are the places, those are the ones that are the absolutely must replace list. They're the ones that are in bold. And then these 2 I just want to mark. Those are high voltage, and this one here is high voltage. An exclamation mark. And then what was the other? C9 I'm not doing anything with. Okay, yeah, 35 and 36 are the last ones. Okay, So here it goes. Oh, this didn't go into any kind of sleep mode. Okay, let's see how quickly I can do this. And at some point, there's bits of solder that have to get emptied out of here. But for now, there's still a lot of room in the chamber, I guess. I'm going to call it that. Sort of like a canister of a vacuum. That's kind of almost literally what it is. Okay. Get some solder on there. Okay. That one I think I might not have gotten all of it. Try to not take the pad off. Okay, clearly I didn't get all of it. Still, okay. Let's see what happens. So I don't know how imperative it is to put fresh solder on the tip here to use this, but my guess is if you don't do that, with solder this old, probably dried out, that it really wouldn't work. But this gun sure makes it easy. So I think the fresh solder kind of puts a heat bridge between the old stuff and the heated tip of this thing, and that's what makes it come off. What did I mark something here, but I'm not sure if it's right. Let's see. Maybe I just smudged the. Make sure I marked the right thing. Okay, yeah, I just smudged it. Okay. Should clean this just like I clean a normal soldering iron. Oh, that worked. Okay. Let's see, 2 more here. I have this at the lowest temperature setting, and it's melting the solder just fine, so I'm glad I didn't preemptively turn it up. It's the kind of thing I might do. Oops. This one over here. I think I'm almost done. So I cannot believe how fast this desolders. This is amazing. I wish I had a close-up. I don't really have a way to show this really close because it's I can't really get the microscope up to it. And I'm guessing it's not very visible from the camera. It's an overhead camera, unfortunately. Okay, I think I might have got them all. Let's see. Those ones. These 2, those ones, those ones, those ones. There. I already did those ones. Okay. So now turn this off for the time being. Now, find out if any of these will actually come off without further solder suction. Okay, I can tell that pin's loose. Okay, that's a good sign actually. Okay, this pin might require. I'm afraid that one's going to need more suction. I'm going to do this as I'm going, because otherwise I won't remember which ones need it. I'm hoping I can see the solder on there still. It's funny. It seems like the because the thing is so bent, it's like covering access to the. Okay. Let's see if I can wiggle it from this. Oh, you know what? That was a good idea. Okay. Ah, okay. That's a strategy. You wiggle it around and then loosen the pins, and that will come off. Okay. Now I'm getting somewhere. This probably would be obvious to most people, but it wasn't to me. As I said, I'm much more comfortable with surface mount, and there's a lot more work to be done with surface mount because those are the ones that leak most prolifically, and so that's normally what I have to worry about. And the good news is, I didn't even think about it until just now, but I've got a bunch more older machines like this that may need their analog boards recapped as well. And I might need to order more caps now that I'm thinking about it, because presumably they're going to use the same. Okay, so this glue that they put on these is not really an obstacle to removing them from the board. I'm sure it probably was originally. I don't think the glue is to keep them from like falling off, because if the solder won't hold, the glue won't do a damn thing. My guess is it was how they kept the components in place for manufacturing, so they could stick them all on and then just flip it over and, you know, solder them all at once. That's most likely what it was used for. Okay, so here is C1. Yep, that one's loose. Oh, no. Okay, I may be risking pulling the land off, which is the through hole equivalent of a pad, I guess. Let's see if that loosened it now. Yeah, that land is coming off. Let's hope it doesn't come all the way off. Because this is when it'll be a problem for getting the new ones on. Okay, I'm gonna. All this is really doing, this stupid hot glue they put on here, is making it so that if I try to take one part off, I risk pulling the other parts that are attached to the same piece of glue. And I hate to use a knife on board lest I cut through it, but I don't know what else to do. So the glue doesn't really hold anything on the board, but it does hold the components, like make them stick together with each other. Okay. There we go. Now this should come off. There we go. Okay. What a pain. Okay, it seems that, no, this one has glue too. Okay, so this one, the glue is there, but literally that's all it took to get it off. I don't know if that was visible. Hopefully it was. And this one's going to come out easily, I can tell. At least more easily than the others. There we go. Okay, now see, here's an example of where one pad, I can get it to focus, darn it. Well, anyway, this pad is square and that one's round. It's, there you go. See it. And so that helps identify the polarity. And on this one here, that's the one that's non-polarized, and you can see they're both round. So, and then like here, that one's square. It's kind of hard to see when there's big dots of solder there, but anyway. Okay. Hopefully this isn't too boring. Okay. Wow, that one just came off easily. That was nice. This one seems like it might be easy, I hope. It's got glue, but it's not glued to anything, so. And the legs seem to be free. There we go. Okay, either I'm getting the hang of this or I just did a better job of desoldering. Okay, that might still have some, yeah, so some of these where they bent the leg like extremely flat toward the board. I feel like the solder gun doesn't do quite as good a job getting under it. I can't say that for sure. They do seem to come, I mean, as long as both legs will wiggle around, then they should come out. Yeah, it seems like the hot glue is really the thing that is most in the way, even though it's not really strong. Okay, and then that one wasn't loose. Those are done. Those are done. Hey, I might have got them all. Let's see how many were in bold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 2 more. Where are they? Ah, here. And of course, there. Yeah. So here's an example of where right there, where there's glue, all 3 of these are glued together. If it was just the 2 caps, which both have to come off, it would be one thing. But it's actually, sorry, this thing's in the way. It's actually glued to this, which is not coming off. And so that's where I have to use this sort of X-Acto knife, scalpel, whatever it is. And let's be honest, it's a sharp knife that's not really that sharp anymore. Okay, it seems like the glue just, as long as it comes loose, okay, it came loose from the cap. That's all that really matters. And then, so actually that's probably the strategy here is, because these caps are wrapped with the plastic, sort sort of label on the outside. The glue doesn't adhere that well to it. It might have when it was new, but it certainly doesn't now. So I can just sort of leave the glue on the board, just detach it from the cap, and then once the cap is off, I can probably go around and clean up glue residue that shouldn't be there anymore. Oh, okay. I think this might need. If I can, here, it's this one. Let's see if that comes off easily now. Shoot, this is. It really is the. Really is these ones that are bent too far that where it's yeah, I don't get it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. That was a case where the when it made a different sound. I don't know if the mic is picking up the sound of this desoldering gun, but it made a different sound. It's because the pin of the leg of the cap was stuck inside the nozzle. Okay. Thank goodness there's only one left. And hopefully this one will be free. Freed from its solder captive. Freed. Still some, yeah, I could feel it. There we go. I could feel the thing start moving freely. I mean that it was loose as soon as the solder melted. Okay, so that's 10 of them off. So I don't know if there are others that probably could be replaced, probably should be replaced. I don't know. I think any of these radial ones. I don't know about, like this kind, these orange and brown ones. I'm not aware that those ever need to be replaced normally. And like C2, so I'm going to see what I can order. I don't want to take those off until I know that I can get a replacement. I'm definitely not interested in taking an old one off and putting it back on. That would just feel incredibly futile. So that being done, I think this is about as far as I can go with this machine for now, until I can get some more. Look at all this big gob of glue right here. They used a lot of glue in this machine. So that's about all I can do with this one right now. The CRT is I'm trusting is in great shape, and I wish I could test that right now, which I guess I could with another analog board out of another machine, but I don't really want to do that right now. And actually, I'd have to take it out of another Plus because there is a difference between these and I believe both the SE and the SE30. They have like a power supply in an enclosure like a regular computer would have, and it sits kind of down. It's this portion of it, this stuff here that has to do with the AC. That is like in a separate box, and there could be RIFAs inside the box, but basically the design changed between pretty sure it was between the Plus and the SE, which was the very next compact model. So basically, the original Mac, the variants of the 512 and the Plus are the only ones that don't have a separate power supply unit inside. So they're not as interchangeable as they might look. Also, I think the power switch is a slightly different shape, and that's probably intentional so that you can't mismatch them. And the battery here again is on the ones that have power supplies, that's internal. So I'm seeing the battery fortunately was removed before storage, so there's no catastrophic leaking to ruin it, unlike one of my SE30s that I stupidly left the battery in. But at some point there was a small amount of leakage. It's kind of hard to see on the camera. And it turns out the easy way to get rid of that is this is just it says a distilled white vinegar. And if I just take that and take a little swab, I should be able to get that off really easily with vinegar. I'm gonna find out. It's nice and soaked. Okay. I've learned my lesson about vinegar. You put the lid back on because it smells really bad when you knock the little vial over. It doesn't take much vinegar to make the whole room stink. And just like that. I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, okay. I was trying to figure out which side actually had the corrosion on it. Looks like there's still a little bit. I'm going to try using the dropper directly on the contact here. I probably should let it soak in for a second too to really do anything, but the reaction is quick. And this doesn't necessarily work with every kind of battery. This is an alkaline battery. It looks like it's a AA. It's not a AA. It's a very expensive these days. Probably very expensive those days. Hard to find battery. Anyway, so I'm not seeing most of it's gone. There's one little spot left here. I probably should be using a brush actually. Stiff brush. This is probably the stiffest one I have. And anyway, I mean it's not a problem. It's still going to be conductive. So I don't know how visible it is, but I got most of what little corrosion was there is off of it now. So anyway, so I think that's going to do it for this stream because I've gotten about as far as I can with this. So I will order the replacement caps, and then depending on availability, to be honest, if I can get replacements for all of them, I'll probably just replace all of them. I don't really see a reason to go to all this trouble and not just replace them all. I'm assuming that that there's some potential benefit to replacing the rest of them. Reading what he says here, usually you only need to replace electrolytics since only they leak or dry out. So the 10 that I just took off absolutely need replacing. And then there's another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that are that don't say they need replacing. Absolutely, but could be replaced. And then there's a huge list here of let's see. Yeah, there's a huge list of other ones. It's got it's hard to tell how many because there are somewhere he's listed alternatives, but basically 55, 43, 2, 1, 49, 47, 45, 44, 43. Yeah, so it looks like there's 43 on this full listing of caps. And then none of this includes the logic board because, again, I don't think the logic board needs any attention. If it does, I will, I guess, discuss that once I get the caps. So anyway, I'm going to end the stream here. Thanks for watching, anybody who did, and I will hopefully have these caps within hopefully a week. I'm not sure how long they take. I'm not going to pay to expedite shipping, but usually it only takes about maybe 4 days to get an order from DigiKey. So if I order it now and it ships out Monday, I should have them within a week. Anyway, have a good night. Thanks for joining.